So this is the start of crash course day 2. And we starting off strong with market structures. We're in the last part of the micro section. So the market structure basically outlines how the market that's a business belongs to behaves. And it looks at it based on these specific things. It looks at it based on pricing, the supply of the goods, the barriers to entry and exit, efficiency, competition, type of product, and so forth. And when we look at each market structure, you'll see exactly what I mean. So these are the things that determine what market structure it is, right? The type of product, how easy it is for people to enter and exit the market, the control over the price, the number of buyers and sellers, the flow of information, things like that. First market structure you look at, and this might be one of them that you see the most, is perfect competition. You ever heard of perfect competition before?
Yes, sir.
They call it perfect competition because basically everything is fair across the board. There's freedom to enter and exit for everybody. Everybody is selling the exact same product, identical. There's a large number of buyers and sellers, and no one seller has influence on the price. The sellers are essentially price takers. Whatever people are willing to buy, pay for the product is what they're selling it for. And everybody has the same amount of information on the products. So everything is fair across the board. Anybody could think of any product that fits that description?
So different people selling fried chicken.
So that's like fried chicken, or see, fried chicken wouldn't fit that product because it wouldn't be exactly the same. My recipe for fried chicken might be different than somebody else's recipe for fried chicken. But what if I said bananas?
A Coca-Cola.
Can you tell the difference between bananas bought from 2 different vendors?
So yeah, some of them have sweeter taste.
Say that again?
Some taste sweeter than.
Say that again, sorry.
So yeah, I saw a bit worse.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I said I had a bad headache yesterday, and then this morning just getting worse.
Gosh.
Catch a cold or something. I was saying some taste different.
Bananas would more or less be the same. They wouldn't be able to tell where the bananas come from. Like if I give you KFC chicken and I give you Church's chicken, you'll be able to tell the difference.
Yes.
They'll be able to say one is from KFC, one is from Church's. But I gave you 2 bananas from 2 different vendors, they wouldn't know which one it came from because it's almost the same. Same thing like flour. If I pour 2 sets of flour from 2 different brands in front of you, they wouldn't be able to tell which one it was. Sugar, salt, carrots, broccoli. These things are what we call homogeneous products. They would be part of the perfect competition. Everybody following so far?
Yes, sir.
So 20 of us selling broccoli for $10 each. And I decide to raise my price. People will just stop by from me and buy from the 19 other persons. So I can't really influence the price. I would have to lower my price back down in order to get sales. Anybody can learn how to grow and sell broccoli. Quick Google search and you'll learn about it. There's no secrets about how to buy and sell broccoli, right? So there's perfect information. And there's freedom to entry and exit. Anybody can become a vendor. So it fits perfectly, no pun intended, under perfect competition. Let's look at another one. Monopolistic competition. So this is a bit different. Still have many buyers and sellers. The product is not exactly the same. It's similar, but it's differentiated in some way. You could tell the difference between the different products. So this is where the fried chicken will come in. Yeah. You have relatively free entry and exit. People could come and leave the business. Each firm may have like a tiny monopoly because of the differentiation of their product. So monopoly is when there's one seller only, right? Let's look at the fried chicken example. A lot of people are selling fried chicken. So the products are similar. But KFC is the only company that sells KFC fried chicken. So technically, they have a monopoly over KFC fried chicken. Church's Chicken is the only company selling Church's Chicken fried chicken. So technically, they have a tiny monopoly on Church's Chicken's fried chicken, and so forth. Because of the differentiation, they have some control over price. If KFC raises the prices, some people might still buy the KFC because they want KFC. They wouldn't just say, well, KFC raised the price, I'll just buy next fried chicken because it's not exactly the same. Like in perfect competition, it was exactly the same. So if they one company raise the price, they just buy from the next one and they get the same thing. But they can't do that in monopolistic competition because of the differentiation between the products. So that gives them some control over the prices. So you all can see the difference between monopolistic competition and perfect competition, right? You all
Yes,
see any difference? All right. Perfect competition, everything is equal. That's what they call it, perfect competition, because everything is fair across the board. In perfect competition, that is not the case. Well, in monopolistic competition, that is not the case, right? The products are differentiated in some way, and each company now has some control over the price. They still have many buyers and sellers, and it's still relatively free entry and exit, and they still have a lot of information about the products, but not perfect information though. Then we have the oligopoly. Say it with me. Oligopoly. I know people struggle pronouncing this word. Oligopoly. Right? This is where the amount of sellers start to reduce now. This is when there's a small number of sellers. There's normally large organizations and they dominate the market. They have high barriers to entry. So a barrier to entry is anything that makes it difficult to join the market. So for example, in order to join you to start selling that product, they might need to have a large amount of money. If they don't have a large amount of money, you can't join the market. That will be a barrier. Or you might need certain equipment that's very expensive or hard to get. And if you don't have it, you can't join the market. Or they might have rules and regulations that you have to abide by. And if you can't meet those requirements, you can't join the market. Those are what we call barriers to entry. Right? The products could be either anyone. It could be completely the same, or it could be differentiated. Right? It could be either one. And they compete a lot, but a lot of the times they compete without using price. So the marketing might go against each other. Or the way they showcase their products. Right? They have some control on the price, similar to monopolistic competition. You see the abnormal profits and things like that. We'll look at that later on. So let's look so in Trinidad, we have a few internet providers. We have B-Mobile, we have Digicel, we have Flow, we have Green Dot. I'm sure I'm missing out some other people, but there's like four the main ones, right? In order for those companies to enter the market, you need to have a large amount of infrastructure in place in order to facilitate the Wi-Fi networks, which costs a lot of money, which is why we don't have a lot of different internet providers, because that barrier stops people from entering the market. All of them are selling Wi-Fi. One could argue that Wi-Fi is homogeneous, but it really isn't. It could vary based on the speed and stuff like that. So it's similar, but slightly differentiated, I guess. But in another way you can look at it, B-Mobile, Digicel, they also sell phones. They sell, in some cases, the exact phone. They are just differentiated by branding. So it's a Digicel you buy it from, or it's B-Mobile you buy it from, but it's the same Samsung phone. Right? So in the same oligopoly, you have a homogeneous product and you have a differentiated product with the Wi-Fi with the different speeds. So that's perfect competition. All the products are the same. Free entry to exit, no control over price, large number of buyers and sellers. Imperfect, well, all the others are imperfect. Monopolistic competition, many buyers and sellers. The products are different in some way, similar but different. Freedom to entry and exit, because there have a little less barriers and some control over price. In oligopolies, you have less sellers, but still many buyers. The barriers to entry is even higher. The products could be similar or differentiated, and they have more control over their price. So much so that they don't even compete using price, they compete using marketing. And then last but not least, the monopoly. Right? Monopoly is one seller, only one seller, and many buyers. The barriers to entry are extremely high, which is why there's only one seller. It's because it's extremely difficult for anybody else to even try to enter the market. Right? You look at what abnormal profits and stuff mean later on. Possibility of price discrimination because they have total control on their price. So if they want, they could say, well, Rachel, your price is 1,000, but Taraya, your price is 3,000. And they can't tell them anything because they have nobody else to buy from. unless the government put controls to try to restrict how they set their prices. They can set their price anyhow, and it's up to you if you want to buy or not. Which limits consumer choice because the only choice is buying from them or not buying at all. And you'll see how, if not controlled, monopolies could be a problem.
Yes.
Imagine you all really, really needed lessons. You all really needed extra classes real bad. And I was the only person in the world who gave extra classes. And I told you all, $5,000 a week. You all could understand how that would be pressure? I might have one
Yes,
person in
sir.
class. I might have one or two people in class, but I wouldn't care. If I have one person in class, I gain 5,000 a week, and it's easier for me. And that's how monopolies think. They could actually be very dangerous to economies. But those are the four market structures you'll need to know, right? Perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies. Now, when it comes to oligopolies, there is a section of oligopolies known as a duopoly. A duopoly is when there's just two firms that are in the market, right? So monopolies is one, duopoly is two. That is just something for you to take note of, right? But the four you need to know are perfect competition, and then the imperfect ones, which is monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies. We call those last three imperfect competition structures. So the perfect competition, and then the other three are imperfect. That is monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies. Everybody good so far, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Just making sure. So let's look at an example. Looking at stock exchange and gas stations. You have many buyers and sellers. Homogeneous product. The petrol is homogeneous, but the service that you get at the gas station won't be homogeneous, right? If you're buying shares from one firm, all the shares are identical. You don't have perfect knowledge in the gas station though, but you have perfect knowledge in the shares. There's one price in the market for gas in the gas stations, one price for shares if you're buying shares from a specific firm, but there's not full freedom to enter and exit by the gas station. So a gas wouldn't exactly be a fully perfect competition. Stock exchange will be closer to it. Now, this is what I talk about when I say barriers to entry, right? Anything that makes it difficult to enter the market, small or large, is considered a barrier to entry. So, for example, let's look at the electrical company in our respective countries, right? The company that provides electricity for everyone. In order for that to happen, they would have had to set up infrastructure all over the country. All those poles and wires they see on the streets going all over the country. You would have to have a huge power plant. You would have to have the permission from the government to do all these things. Those are extremely high barriers to entry. For another company to try to do it, they would have to set up their own poles. They'll have to find space first to set up their own poles and wires all over the place. They'll have to have all over the country. have to have a huge power plant that could facilitate that power. And they'll have to get legal permission from the government. You think any other company gonna be able to do all those three things in any of our countries? No. And then they're gonna have to try to convince each house to rewire themselves to allow them to supply them power instead. After they would have been accustomed with this one company for however long. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna be the legal barriers because the governments would think it easier to regulate one company as opposed to more than one. And then the capital that you need, the cost, is going to be ridiculously high. The resources that you'll need will be a lot. And this will prevent other firms from being able to enter the market. That is what we talk about when we say barriers. Competition could be a barrier to entry. I love to use this example. In Trinidad, we have two bears called Stag and Carib. Stag is owned by Carib right now, but it wasn't always like that. Stag used to be a competitor to Carib. Carib was the first company, and then Stag came along. And Carib did not want Stag in the market. So what Carib did, they dropped their prices for their beers to $2. Stag had no choice but to drop their prices as well, so that people would buy from them. And both companies were making losses. The problem was Carib was the bigger company, so they could withstand the losses for longer. Stag went bankrupt, and then Carib bought them. That is what we talk about when we say a barrier to entry. Stag tried to enter the market, but the competition from Carib stopped them. So much so that Carib ended up buying them. It was difficult for Digicel to enter the markets to sell phones and internet and stuff when they just came against because of B-Mobile's marketing. What Digicel had to do was outperform B-Mobile. Luckily, Digicel had the money to do it. So they spent a huge amount of money in marketing. They had to give away phones for free and all kind of thing just to be able to enter the market because of the barriers that were in place. Right? Anything that makes it difficult to enter the market is if it is they don't have enough workers, they don't know how to use the technology, they don't have the access to the technology needed to make the product, they don't have suppliers. Anything that makes it difficult to enter the market is what we call a barrier to entry. Everybody clear on that?
I can explain predatory pricing, myself.
Say that again, sorry.
Predatory pricing.
Predatory pricing.
Yeah.
All right, no problem. So before I explain it, you know what predator is? All right, so long story short,
Yes. For
long
sure.
story short, what I explained with Stag and Carib is predatory pricing. So what Carib did to Stag when Stag entered the market and Carib dropped their price to $2, that is predatory pricing. They drop your price below the cost of production just to stop competitors from coming into the market. And once the competitor leave, they raise their price back up. Right, that is basically predatory pricing. In some countries actually make it illegal. But it wasn't illegal when Carib did to Stag. Right. Now we have to take a look at some of these costs and revenues first, before we start looking at the curves themselves. No, the curves is what is good people the trouble. So first, you all know how to calculate profit, right? The amount of money you make minus the amount of money you spend. Total revenue minus total cost. Everybody understand that, right? Right. If I sold 10 units and as the selling price was $5 per unit, what would be my total revenue?
$50.
$50. So everybody understands that, right? The total revenue is your unit price multiplied by the number of units. So if those same units cost me $2, what's my total cost?
$20.
$20, right? 2 by 20, 2 by 10. And then what would be my total profit?
$30.
Right. $50 minus $20. $30, right? And what would be my profit per unit? If it's $5 per unit and the cost price is $2 per unit, what's my profit per unit?
$3.
$3. Everybody understands that so far, right?
Yes.
Right. Don't forget that. So, in economics, right? When we look at total cost, we are looking at total cost in the sense of our factors of production, right? For land, that would be rent. For labor, that would be what? Labor would be what?
Wages.
Wages. Capital would be
Interest.
interest. And entrepreneurship would be
Profit.
profits. So in economics, when we are looking at our total costs, we are already including the profits for the entrepreneur. All right? You're already including the profit for our entrepreneur. So in economics, if our total revenue is equal to our total cost, then we made profits. Because if our total revenue is equal to total cost, that means we have enough revenue for our rent, wages, interest, and profits. So then we've made our normal profits, the profits that we expected. If, however, our revenue is higher than our total cost, then we've made what we call abnormal profits or excess profits or supernormal profits. They have so much names for it. Why it have so much names for it? I don't know. But it just means they made more profits than they expected. Right? So it's called supernormal profits, abnormal profits, economic profits, windfall profit. I don't know why it has so much names. If they were just bored at it and it's like, hey, well, we call it this, they call it that. I don't know. And then of course, if your total revenue is less than your total cost, then you made a what? Good tell me.
A loss.
A
loss.
loss. Pretty sure they sound so mysterious there, boy. But correct. Everybody following so far, right? All these things is very important to understand before we do the graphs. Right? Because our total cost includes profits. When our total revenue is equal to total cost, we are making our normal profits. Because total cost includes profits. We have enough revenue for our rent, wages, interest, and the profit that we expect. If we make more revenue than that, then we have abnormal profits or supernormal profits. And if we make less revenue than our cost, then we make a loss. Right. No. Normal profits, what I just explained, is the minimum level of profits that the entrepreneur will expect. This is when total revenue is equal to total cost. When total revenue is less than total cost, you make a loss. Right? I think everybody good so far. Same way we calculate average cost is the way we calculate average revenue. The average revenue is a revenue per unit. They get a revenue per unit. It will be total revenue divided by the total number of units. And then it's marginal revenue now. It's the same thing like a marginal cost. It's the revenue from selling one additional unit. The marginal cost is the cost from making one additional unit. Marginal revenue is the revenue from selling one additional unit. So, if 10 units give you 500 in revenue, and 11 units will give you 550 in revenue. What would be the marginal revenue?
50.
50. 50, correct. So marginal revenue and marginal cost are linked, right? If my marginal revenue, my marginal cost for producing one additional unit is 30, and my marginal revenue from that unit is 60, would you produce that additional unit? If I produce that additional unit, it's giving me 30 in cost and 60 in revenue. Will you produce it?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I would,
Yes.
right? Because I'm getting more revenue than cost for producing it. If the marginal cost was 80, would you produce it?
No.
No,
No.
because it's costing more than the revenue it's getting. Keep that in mind.
So wait, no,
I'll go back.
mm,
Yeah,
not the one with 80, the one before the 80.
with
That it was
30. It costed me 30, but I'm getting 60. If I tell you give me $30 and I'll give you $60, would you do it?
Yes.
oh yeah.
Right. So to produce this additional unit, it's going to cost you 30, but you're going to get $60 for doing it. So you would do it, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. But if it was costing you 80 and you're only getting 60, then it doesn't make sense to do it. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. So marginal cost and marginal revenue are related. We know our average cost and our marginal cost from before. Average cost is total cost divided by quantity. A marginal cost is the cost to produce one additional unit, right? Now, okay, you have that slide here. So let me explain it here now. We operate to maximize our profits. We produce goods where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. That's where we produce our units. We wouldn't go past that, and we wouldn't stop before that. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say this is marginal cost and this is marginal revenue. When I produce 1 unit, marginal cost is 20, marginal revenue is 50. 2 units, marginal cost is 30. Marginal revenue is 45. 3 units, marginal cost is 40. Marginal revenue is 40. 4 units, marginal cost is 50. Marginal revenue is 35. 5 units, marginal cost is 60. Marginal revenue is 30. Right. I want to get as much profit as I possibly can. Would I produce the first unit?
No, sir.
Would I?
You'd
You said
produce
yes, right?
two.
Because my revenue is higher than my cost. So I would get
Oh,
$30 from it, right? Would I produce the second unit?
Yes.
Yes, because I'm getting $15 extra from it, right? Where I would stop is by the third unit. When I produce the third unit, I'm breaking even. I am not going to go past this unit because I know anyway after that I'm going to be making losses because my marginal cost here is 50 and my marginal revenue is 35. So I will stop here. So the number of units I would produce is 3 in order to maximize my profits. That is how the businesses operate in economics. So for me to decide where I'm going to how much units I'm going to produce, I'm going to produce the amount of units where my marginal cost is equal to my marginal revenue. So that's where we operate all the time, where our marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Now, with all these things in mind, I'm gonna list out all the things that we have in mind before we look at the graph. You know, abnormal profits is when your total revenue is greater than total cost. Normal profits is when total revenue is equal to total cost. Losses is when total revenue is less than total cost. You know your profit. You know, to calculate profit, you have to compare your revenue and your cost, right? Average revenue is your revenue per unit. Average cost is your cost per unit. Marginal revenue is revenue from 1 additional unit. Marginal cost is cost from 1 additional unit. And to maximize profits, we produce where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. These things here, keep all of these in mind. If you need to take a second and write it down, feel free to take a second and write it down. Or wait. Abnormal profit is equal to total revenue. Abnormal profit is when total revenue is greater than total cost. Normal profit is when total revenue is equal to total cost. Losses, total revenue is less than total cost. The average revenue is the revenue per unit, which is total revenue divided by total unit. The average cost is a cost per unit, which is total cost divided by total units. A marginal revenue is a revenue from one additional unit. A marginal cost is a cost from one additional unit. And to maximize your profits, we produce where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you all 2 minutes to write that down now. Right. So let us look at our first graph here. So this is what perfect competition could look like in short term. So let me explain every part of this graph. In perfect competition, they have no control over their price. So, at different levels of demand, the price would stay the same. The price is essentially perfectly inelastic. You remember when we did elasticity yesterday and we looked at the different graphs? Perfectly inelastic looked like this. A horizontal line like this. Perfectly elastic looked like this. Price stays the same, but with different quantity demanded. So this is the demand curve. Under perfect competition, your marginal revenue is equal to your average revenue. So this price here represents the marginal revenue and average revenue. Let's see if it's true. Let's say, for example, price was $5. Quantity here was 5, and then we have 6. If the price is $5 and the quantity is 5, what's total revenue? If the price is $5 and the quantity is 5, what will be the total revenue? Anybody?
0.
So 10.
How much? How much? I didn't hear you. The price,
10.
no, it wouldn't be 10. If the price is $5 per
0.
unit, and the total units, the total
25?
quantity, correct. The total quantity is 5. And total revenue will equal 5 times 5, which is $25, right? Average revenue is a revenue per unit. Average revenue equals revenue per unit. So that will be total revenue divided by total units. The total revenue is 25. And the total units, the total quantity is how much?
5.
5. 25 divided by 5 is how much?
5.
Right? So we know the average revenue is indeed 5. Let's look at marginal revenue now. Let's look at 6. If we have produced 6 units, what would be my total? What would be my total revenue? If total quantity was 6,
13.
my total revenue would be 30, right? What is the marginal revenue from moving from 5 to 6?
1.
1.
From moving from 5 units to 6 units. 5 units was the revenue was $25. 6 units, the revenue is $30. What is the marginal
$5.
revenue?
5.
$5.
$5. So you see, my marginal revenue is equal to my average revenue. So in perfect competition, your marginal revenue is always equal to your average revenue. Everybody with me so far, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now this curve here is my marginal cost curve. We operate to maximize our profits. Where do we operate again? Check the notes here, I wrote down.
Marginal cost equals marginal revenue.
So this line is our marginal revenue. So you see this point here, where the marginal cost is touching our marginal revenue. That's where we produce. That's why we're producing this amount of quantity. Now, to make normal profits, how do we make normal profits again? Check the notes. Normal profits is what again?
So is it total revenue minus total cost?
Total revenue. When total
Can be
revenue is
minus.
equal
Revenue equal
Yeah.
to total cost, we make normal profits, right? So it's the same with average. When our average revenue is equal to our average cost, we make normal profits. So this last curve here is the average cost curve. What we're looking at is at this point where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, we are going to compare our average revenue and our average cost at this point. And if you notice, the average cost curve touches the average revenue curve at this exact point. So they're equal. When the average cost is equal to average revenue at this point, that's when you have normal profits. So I'm going to draw the same curve again on the side, see if we get a better understanding. Right? So I have my y-axis and my x-axis. This price is this quantity. Under perfect competition, this is what the demand curve would look like. It would be a straight line because they have no control over price. When price remains the same, quantity demanded could change. So this would be a price here that you're operating at. And your demand curve is also equal to your average revenue and your marginal revenue. Because we just proved that just now on the side here. We saw that average revenue and marginal revenue is the same. Right? Then I'll draw my marginal cost curve, which always looks like a kind of tick. And where do we operate to maximize our profits?
Marginal cost equals marginal revenue.
We operate where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So we will be operating at this point here. So we are going to produce this amount of goods. Now for us to know if we're making supernormal profits, normal profits or losses, it all depends on where our average cost is. For normal profits, our average cost has to be equal to our average revenue at this point where we are producing, where we are working at, where we maximize our profits. At this point, for us to make normal profits, our average cost is supposed to be equal to average revenue. Our average cost curve looks like a wide U. And it'll come like this. So if we look at the points, where marginal cost is equal to average revenue, you'll see that the average cost is also equal to average revenue. And that means we are making normal profits. You think you'll follow them?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, this is also the perfect competition curve, right?
This is the perfect competition curve here.
And it's get confusing.
That's okay. So that is normal profits. Now let us take a look at losses. So I'm going to draw it again on the side of this one and explain it when I'm drawing it, right? So again, I have my y-axis and my x-axis. This is price. This is quantity. And my demand curve on the perfect competition is still a straight horizontal line. And we know my demand curve. This is also equal to my average revenue and my marginal revenue. I'll draw my marginal cost curve now. Now, where does it operate again?
Marginal cost. It's average cost.
Marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So that will be at this point here, where the marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So I will be producing this amount of goods. Now, if we are making a loss, can you check back the note that you wrote down and tell me what's happening when you're making a loss?
Total revenue is more than total cost is more than total revenue.
Total cost is more than total revenue. So it's the same in average. If we're making a loss, our average cost has to be more than total revenue at this point. At this point, when we produce this amount of goods, our average cost is supposed to be more than total revenue. So if I draw my average cost curve here, at this point, my average revenue is down here, but my average cost is up here. So my average cost is actually higher than my average revenue at this point, when marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. That's why it's considered a loss. Well, understand the difference between the normal profit and the loss?
Yes, sir.
So basically, everything else stayed the same. What was different was where my average cost curve was. In the first one, my average cost curve was equal to my average revenue. It was normal profits. But in this one now, my average cost is higher than my average revenue. So I'm making a loss. Now, if I wanted to calculate my loss, I could actually do that if I had numbers. So let's say this quantity was 10. This price is 5. And this price is 6. My total revenue would be my quantity multiplied by my average revenue. My average revenue is how much? What's the average revenue? Try it.
5,
5. And what's the quantity?
10.
10. So my total revenue is 50. My total cost will be my average cost times quantity. What's my average cost?
So 6,
6. And the quantity is
10,
10. So that's 60. So how much is my loss?
10.
My loss is
$10.
$10. So again, it's all about where the average cost curve is located. Everything else stays the same except the average cost curve. Then we have abnormal profits. So again, all these things are skipping out is basically what I'm explaining to you just now, right? But I have it here for you to go through it when I send you all the PowerPoints. So again, I'm going to draw it next to this one and explain it. These are our abnormal profits, or supernormal profits, or economic profits, or windfall profits. And again, everything else stays the same. The demand curve is still completely horizontal. And the demand curve still represents average revenue and marginal revenue. Marginal cost curve is still like a large tick. Goes down first, then goes up. And we still operate where do we operate again?
Where our average revenue is equal to our marginal revenue.
Where our marginal cost is equal to our marginal revenue. So we operate at this point. The marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So which means we'll be producing this amount of quantity. Now, can you tell me what has to happen for us to make abnormal profits?
So we have to earn more than what we expect.
Right. Our average revenue needs to be greater than our average cost. So at this point here, where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, when we produce this amount, our average cost needs to be less than our average revenue. So let's say this was my average cost, okay? At this point, when we produce X, my average cost will be here. And because my average cost is lower than my average revenue, That will be considered supernormal profits. And again, to calculate the profits, if we put numbers to it. So let's say this quantity is 5. Let's say my average revenue is 10. And my average cost is 4. My total revenue will be equal to average revenue multiplied by quantity. What's the average revenue?
10,
And what's the quantity?
5,
Which is how much in all?
50,
All right. And then my total cost would be my average cost by quantity. My average cost is how much?
4,
Quantity is,
5,
which is how much?
20,
20. So my abnormal profits will be how much?
30,
30. Every so in the competition, everything else stays the same. All you need to think about is where you're drawing your average cost curve. If you're making normal profits, your average cost curve needs to be equal to your average revenue. If you're making if you're making losses, your average cost needs to be higher than your average revenue. And if you're making abnormal profits, your average cost needs to be lower than your average revenue.
So,
Yeah?
that's a question, please. Oh, how would a question like that come about?
It practice one. What is asking?
I was asking how a question like that would come about in the exam.
If they would bring a question like this,
Oh,
yes.
how would they structure it?
I will actually show you one just now.
Okay.
I actually have a passive question on this coming up, so you will see how they structure it. But most likely they might give you a scenario, and you would have to be able to try and tell if it is perfect competition, monopolistic competition, monopoly or oligopoly. And then he might ask you to draw the graph first and depict either normal profits or supernormal profits or losses. And if they want, they can even go as far as to ask you to calculate it like what we did just now.
Okay. Thanks.
So again, all of this is what I just explained. Now, here's what happens. So in the short run, right? You all remember what the short run is, right? The short run is when at least one factor of production is fixed. Right. In a long run, all factors of production are variable.
It's variable.
So here's what happens in a long run when it comes to perfect competition. In a short run, it's possible to make supernormal profits, normal profits, or losses. But in a long run, you can only make normal profits under perfect competition. Reason being, here's what happens, right? If you was making supernormal profits in the short run, when it's the long run and all factors are variable, then it's easier to enter the market. People will see you making supernormal profits and they will want to join the market. And because it have more people entering the market, you'll start making less and less profits until it comes down to normal profits. And when it reaches normal profits, it will stop attracting people into the market and people will stop coming. So if you're making supernormal profits in the short run, in the long run, more people will join the market and you'll start making normal profits. Now, if you was making losses in the short run, in the long run, people will leave the market And when people leave the market, you'll start making less and less losses until eventually it goes up to normal profits. And when you reach normal profits, people will stop leaving the market. And then if you was making normal profits in the short run, you'll just continue making normal profits in the long run. So perfect competition, long run, only normal profits. So if they ask you to draw a perfect competition graph in the long run, you're going to draw a perfect competition graph and you're going to show it making normal profits. So I'm going to explain it one more time. I'm going to explain it one more time. In the short run, he was making supernormal profits. In the long run, that supernormal profits will attract more firms to enter the market. And when more firms enter the market, the profits will start to decrease until they start making normal profits. And when they start making normal profits, firms will stop entering the market. If you were making losses in the short run, in the long run, people will start to leave the markets because of the losses. And eventually, when enough people leave, the firms that remain will no longer be making losses, they'll be making normal profits. And when they start making normal profits, firms will stop leaving the markets. So in the long run, for perfect competition, you would only make normal profits. Everybody good with that, right? Because they can't ask you to explain it. The same way I said it just now, you will have to say that in the exam. So short run, it can make all of these. It can make normal profits, super normal profits, losses. In the long run, it only make normal profits. Everybody clear with that, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now we're going to look at the other graphs. And luckily for you all, when it comes to imperfect competition, which is monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies, all of their graphs look the same. Right? Normal profits, supernormal profits, losses, they will all look the same, right? So I'm going to draw this graph next to this picture here to explain each part. So this is for all three other graphs. I know it says monopolistic here, but it's for all three, right? Monopolistic, oligopolies, and monopolies. And I'll just explain so I'll show you abnormal, normal, and losses. And I'll explain to you which market structure would make up normal profit, which one to make losses, which one to make normal profits, right? I'll explain that after. First, let's just learn how to draw it. So we start off like normal. Your y-axis and your x-axis. You have a price and a quantity. Now, in imperfect competition, you have a regular demand curve. A demand curve is normally downward sloping. The demand curve will look like this, just like any other regular demand curve. And this demand curve is still equal to your average revenue. However, it is no longer equal to your marginal revenue. Under imperfect competition, that is monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies, your marginal revenue would be located in a line on downward sloping as well underneath the demand curve. So this would be your marginal revenue. I see two main differences. The average revenue is no longer equal to your marginal revenue, and the curves are downward sloping. The marginal cost could still look like a kind of a V, a kind of tick, sorry. And we still operate at the same place. Where do we operate again? Where what is equal to what?
Our marginal cost is equal to our average revenue.
No, marginal revenue. Where marginal cost, remember what is linked is marginal cost and marginal revenue, the two M's. We operate where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So we are operating at this point here, where our marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So we are going to produce this amount of goods. Right? So this graph here is showing supernormal profits or economic profits. What has to happen to make economic profits again?
So repeat.
Marginal cost
What
is
has-
equal to marginal revenue.
Right. To make economic profits or supernormal profits, what has to happen? I think somebody just said it.
So supernormal profit is when you earn more than what you expect.
Right. Your marginal revenue needs to be higher than the average revenue, sorry, is higher than the average cost. So if I was to draw my average cost curve like this, for example, let's write that over. That's a terrible average cost curve, but to serve its purpose, I am looking at when I produce X, my average cost is here at this point here. But my average revenue is up here. My average revenue is up here. So my average revenue is higher than my average cost. So I am making supernormal profits. You're seeing it? You want me to draw it again? Until the silence, I mean, yes, sir, please draw it again and explain it. Or create explainer. No problem. I shall explain it again. So, in perfect competition, which is monopolistic, oligopoly, and monopoly, we have a normal demand curve, which is downward sloping. The demand curve is equal to your average revenue, but it's not equal to your marginal revenue. Your marginal revenue has its own separate curve now underneath the demand curve, and it's also downward sloping. This is my marginal revenue. The other curves remain the same. My marginal cost curve will still go down, then go up. And we still operate where what is equal to what again? Somebody tell me. Where do we operate?
Marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue.
Right. Marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. We operate at Marshall Montano, double M. Marginal cost, marginal revenue, two M's. So we are producing this amount of goods. So to check to see if we're making profits, supernormal profits or losses, we need to check our average cost and our average revenue at this point. Now, what we're looking at first is supernormal profits, which is where our average revenue is greater than our average cost. So if I was to draw an average cost curve like this, so again, everything remains the same when we're looking at the difference, when we're looking at supernormal profits normal profits and losses. Everything else remains the same except where our average cost is located, right? So in this case, when I produce X, if I keep going straight up to the average cost curve, my average cost is here. This is my average cost. But my average revenue, if I keep going straight up, is up here. So my average revenue is greater than my average cost, which means I am making supernormal profits. You all follow?
Yes, sir.
Right. Ooh. Before you erase it, I can even calculate how much my supernormal profits are. And my cost is 8 and my revenue is 9. Here's what I want you all to do. I want you all to calculate how much the abnormal profit is and then send a message directly to me telling me how much it is without me saying how to do it. I'll give you 2 minutes.
The calculator.
Calculate the profit. How much the abnormal profit is. My
Okay.
unit is 10, my cost is 8, and my revenue is 9. Calculate it and send it to me directly in a message on Zoom. Send it to me directly, not in the main chat. All right, great. So most of you were able to calculate it as 10 because the total cost would be average cost of 8 by the total unit, which is 10. 8 by 10 is 80. And the total revenue would be average revenue 9 by total units 10. 9 by 10 is 90. 90 minus 80 is $10. Good. Don't worry, for your first break coming up just now, right? I know we're going a while now. But I said we're going to spend some time on this. But this is the one that's give people the most pressure. Now let's look at a loss. And I will draw it next to the picture. So you'll get a better understanding. So again, draw your x-axis, your y-axis. Price, quantity, and in perfect competition, the graph is downward sloping. The demand is equal to average revenue. And then your marginal revenue is downward sloping as well underneath the demand curve. And then you draw your marginal cost curve after. So this part, or everything that I drew here so far, that doesn't change. Once it's in perfect competition, all these things here it doesn't change. And it operates. Where do we operate again? I'll keep asking it. Where what is equal to what? Marshall Montano?
Where the marginal revenue and the marginal cost intersects.
Correct. Right here, we operate in here. Do we producing this amount of units? So if we're making a loss, how do we make a loss again?
When our total revenue is less than our total cost.
Right. So if I was to draw my average cost up here.
Mhm.
So average cost. If I was to look at where I'm producing X, my average revenue would be here, and then my average revenue. This would be my average revenue. But my average cost would be up here. My average cost is higher than my average revenue, so I'm making a loss. Everybody following, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. I want you to calculate how much the loss is now and send it to me. We have the revenue here, $4, and we have the cost of 6. Take 2 minutes, calculate the loss and send it to me directly. All right, good job, y'all. So we all got it. My total revenue would be the $4, your average revenue, by the 10 units, which is $40. And then my total cost will be the $6 in the cost by the 10 in units, which is 60, which means my loss is the revenue minus my cost, which gives me negative 20. It's the negative figure, you know, it's a loss. Not bad, guys. Bad at all. Now let's look at normal profits. Normal profits, your average cost is supposed to be equal to your average revenue. So let's draw it again. Have a price, you have your quantity, your demand curve is still downward sloping. Your demand curve is still equal to your average revenue. The marginal revenue is still downward sloping as well under the demand curve. The marginal cost still looks like a tick, a correct sign. And where do we operate again? Marshall Montano.
Marginal cost equal marginal revenue.
Marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Right here. So we producing this amount of goods. For us to make normal profits, our average cost needs to be equal to our average revenue. So if I also draw my average cost like this, I think I'm close enough. And I was to go up from where I produce X, and I come up to here. At this point, when I produce X, my average cost and my average revenue are equal. So that will be considered normal profits. You understand?
So,
Yes, sir, but can you repeat?
Do it over.
Yes, sir.
Right. Let's draw the last part. So, yeah, the drawing is same demand curve, which is equal to average revenue. It drawing a same marginal revenue curve. It drawing a same marginal cost curve. We are still operating when marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue at this point. So this is the amount of goods we're producing. For normal profits, the average cost is equal to the average revenue. So let's say my average cost is here. Gosh, I draw that terrible. Once again. Let's say my average cost is here. If I go straight up from when I produce X, I go straight up to my cost curves. My average cost and my average revenue will be equal. So both of them touching at that point. That means they are equal. And because they are equal, it means I'm making normal profits.
Okay then, sir.
So for imperfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopolies and monopolies, technically it is possible for them to make all three in the short run. They can make normal profits, they can make losses, or they can make abnormal profits. However, in the long run, monopolistic competition would only make normal profits. Similar to why perfect competition only makes normal profits. It's the same as monopolistic competition. They would only make normal profits. It is, however, possible for oligopolies and monopolies to make supernormal profits in the long run because of their nature.
That's basically play.
Say that again? Somebody said something?
So that was me. I was saying something to somebody in the background. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Right. So, monopolistic competition, they wouldn't make normal profits in the long run. But oligopolies and monopolies, it is possible for them to make abnormal profits in the long run. This is basically what I explained before. So let's look at this question here, right? You break commenters over. Give all the other. It says state 3 examples of barriers to entry that occur in market structures. So that would be stuff like financial barriers, legal barriers, lack of suppliers, competitors,
Limited market.
limited, yes, predatory pricing, predatory pricing, anything like
Economies
that.
of scale.
Economies of scale, yes. Anything that makes it difficult for another firm to enter the market. Then they ask, identify the time period where firms can enter or leave an industry. What time period is that?
Long run.
The long run. Thank you
Long
very
run.
much. Identify 2 structures characterized by barriers of entry. Which 2 market structures have the most barriers of entry?
Monopoly.
Oligopoly and monopoly.
Monopoly and oligopoly. Right. Now let's look at this next one here. Said in a big city, there are many small fried chicken restaurants. Though they are all selling fried chicken, each restaurant is
Perfect
known for its
competition.
own unique recipe. Exactly. The restaurants are very competitive and there's freedom to enter and exit. They said draw and label a diagram to illustrate the long-run equilibrium of a firm in this industry. So we need to know that this is monopolistic competition, right? Because it's a similar but differentiated product. Correct?
Yes,
Use the same example. And in the long run, monopolistic competition could only make one type of profit. Or what profit is that?
No.
normal.
Normal profits. So what we'd have to do is draw the graph to show normal profits for imperfect competition. So I'd have to draw this demand curve, which is equal to average revenue. I'd have to draw my marginal revenue curve. who almost didn't do something very important. Label my access, price, and quantity. All right, then I'll draw my marginal cost curve. I'll show that I'm operating where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So I'm producing X. And then I'll draw my average cost curve to be equal to my average revenue curve. To show that it's making normal profits. And most importantly, I would label it. So I would title it, sorry. So I would call this monopolistic competition.
Sir, can you draw it again, please?
Long run. Sure. I'm gonna draw it again down here. So draw my x-axis, my y-axis, price, quantity. It's not perfect competition. So my demand curve is downward sloping. And my demand is equal to average revenue. My marginal revenue curve is downward sloping as well and located underneath the demand curve. So I'll label it marginal revenue. And then my marginal cost curve looks like a tick going up like this. These three things do not change. Whether it's normal profits, abnormal profits, or losses, these three things won't change. And I'm operating here at Marshall Montano when marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, 2 M's. Producing this amount. Now, for it to be normal profit, my average cost has to be equal to my average revenue at this point. So if I keep going here and I reach at this point, my average cost should also be equal to my average revenue. So my average cost should be here as well. So I will draw my average cost curve to make sure it's intersecting at that point to show that it's equal to my average revenue. And I will label it, I would call it, sorry, monopolistic competition, long run, normal profits. Just to make sure I get my full marks. And then they said discuss 2 ways in which barriers to entry could determine an existing firm's long-run equilibrium position. And this is where I discuss, we discussed what I told you before about why they make normal profits. I say in the long run, there are less barriers to entry. So if they were making losses, people would leave the firm, leave the markets until the companies that remain are making normal profits. Also, similarly, in the long run, if they were making supernormal profits before, more people would enter the market, which would reduce the amount of profits they're making until they make normal profit. I have the answers exactly what's supposed to happen. It happened. Right, so I didn't draw the diagram because you have it in the PowerPoint already. You just have to go and look at in perfect competition, the normal profit diagram to get the answer. And then the explanation. So this PowerPoint, I've already sent it in your WhatsApp group. I would strongly advise going over market structures a couple times if you need to, and practice showing the graphs. Don't just look at the graph. Practice actually drawing it out. Practice showing the supernormal profits, normal profits, and losses for both perfect and imperfect. The more practice you do, the better. Trust me. So we've been doing since about 2 hours now, straight. So we started around 9:15 and it's 11:13. So we'll give you all a good 20 minutes break. Do not log out. Stay on. But just come back at 11:34. They say 11:35. And we resume then. All right?
Yes, sir.
And we will start with market failure.
Okay, sir.
So apologies for the technical difficulties with the PowerPoint, but we still gonna get the information, right? So we're on the second to last topic for the day, market failure. The whole purpose of economics is looking at how we can use our limited resources to satisfy our unlimited wants as efficiently as possible. So we want to allocate resources as efficiently as possible. When we do not do that, when we are unable to allocate resources efficiently, that is what is called market failure, because we're failing to do what it is we set out to do in economics for the first place, right? Use our limited resources to satisfy our unlimited wants as efficiently as possible. So once we don't produce the optimal quantity of goods and services, we have market failure. If we produce too much of some good or too little of other good, that is market failure. Right? Now, there are some main causes of market failure. The first one being something that we looked at just now. Monopolies. Remember I told you monopolies can be dangerous.
Yeah.
So monopolies are great for the person who owns the monopoly, but terrible for everybody else unless the government intervenes. So you all know what a monopoly is when there's one seller dominating the market, right? One seller and many buyers. You see with this is that when there's one seller, because there's no competition, they are going to set their prices high. Because they're setting their prices higher, there's less people that could afford to buy their goods. So what they are going to do, they are going to produce less of those goods because the demand is going to be smaller. Now, you have a lot of people that want the good, but cannot get the good because of the lower output. Right, so that's market failure right there. And then finally, there's going to be very little innovation and creativity because why do they have to? Why do they have to bother? They have nobody to compete with. That's just extra cost. So you're not even going to get the best quality product. In Trinidad, you all might be too young. Some of you might be too young to remember or to even know that happened. But we experienced this with B-Mobile. Before VDSL came into the country, we just had B-Mobile. As a matter of fact, B-Mobile didn't exist. It was just TSTT, Trinidad and Tobago Telecommunication System. And their prices and products were terrible because they had no competition. It is only when VDSL came into the country, that's when they launched B-Mobile, and they started offering Wi-Fi, and they started offering better phones and better services and better packages because they had competition. But monopolies are very dangerous to the markets. They cause market failure by having higher prices, which will reduce the demand because people can't afford it, and lower output because there's nobody to compete with, and because their price is so high, a lot of people can't afford their products, so they just sell less. And there's a lack of innovation because there's nobody to compete with. So why bother? You could see how that leads to market failure, right? That leads to the resources not being used efficiently. It will lead to a lot of unhappy people. You're seeing that?
Yes, sir.
How many people here like bottled water? Raise your hand. How many people here purchase bottled water? Would you all be happy if bottled water was $10,000 for a bottle?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
No. If it was $500 a bottle, if it was $100 a bottle, TT or US, would you all like it?
No.
No.
Too.
But if there was a monopoly on bottled water and there was nothing in place to stop them, that company could set their price to whatever they want. And that would lead to us not being able to get a product that we desire. So we are not able to efficiently satisfy our wants using our limited resources. So that is why it will lead to market failure.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest sources of market failure. All of them are big sources of market. Second one, merit goods and public goods. Let's look at public goods first. Actually, since I have merit goods in front, let's look at merit goods first, right? You look at merit and demerit goods. A merit good is something that brings something positive to society. A demerit good is something that brings something negative to society. So, for example, education would improve the overall quality of workers, will improve their efficiency. That's something positive. Healthcare will reduce the amount of time people stay sick, so they could improve the productivity of the economy. That's something positive. Alcohol could lead to people getting sick, could lead to drunk driving and accidents. It could lead to people having impaired decision making. That's a demerit good. That brings something negative. Cigarettes. Cigarettes are linked to cancer. It's linked to poor health. That's a demerit good. Plain and simple, if you have too much demerit goods or not enough merit goods, that could lead to market failure. Because if you have too much demerit goods, that is decreasing productivity, that's decreasing efficiency, that's decreasing happiness, satisfaction, all in one, which is not how you want to allocate your resources if you want to satisfy your wants efficiently. When you have a lot of merit goods, demerit goods bring positivity, it increases productivity, it increases efficiency, it brings something positive to society that will help you achieve market success. If you have too little merit goods, so the merit goods are being under-consumed, not everyone wants to buy them, but a lot of people want to buy the merit goods because they undervalue the benefits of the merit goods and they overvalue the benefits of the demerit goods, then that would lead to market failure. Everybody understands how the merit and demerit goods lead to market failure?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Public goods now. It's a whole different ballgame. Public good is a not excludable and non-rivalrous good. Zero price. What this means is the public good does not cost anybody money to use it. As in these private citizens, you and me, it doesn't cost us any money to use it. One person using it doesn't exclude other people from using it. So, the street lights, for example, I benefit from the street lights, and me benefiting from the street lights doesn't stop other people from benefiting from the street lights. We have the police service, and we have the defense force. I benefit from that by getting protection. Me benefited from it doesn't stop other people from benefiting from it. So those will be considered public goods. Public goods are important, right? However, here's the issue with public goods and how it could lead to market failure. Let's imagine Rachel, Shaniqua, Zariah, and myself. We live on the same street. Our street is badly paved, right? I am rich-ish. I have enough money to fix the streets. But if I fix the streets, can I charge Zariah and any of them money to drive on the public road?
No.
No, sir.
No, I can't. So if I fix the streets, I will be spending my money and everybody else is going to get a benefit, even though they didn't spend any money. That's what we call the free rider problem. So that might make me hesitant to do it, because I might think it's unfair. How come I have to spend the money and everybody benefiting from it? And that could reduce the amount of public goods that we have in society. And less public goods means less efficiency, less productivity, less goods and services being produced because of it, less happiness, market failure. Because all four of us are going to be driving on that holy bumpy road and they're going to slow us down. We're not going to be happy about it. Or because none of us want to spend the money. Or some of us can't spend the money because they don't have it. And then the last one now, externalities. You all know what an externality is? Anybody here knows?
Yes, sir.
What's an
Yes, sir.
externality?
So something that benefits third parties.
Something that benefit, something that affects third parties. Because remember, externality could be positive and negative. Right? So an externality will be affected on the third party from the purchase of a good or service. So for example, I decide to buy security cameras for my house. So I spend my money and buy security cameras for my house. But where the security cameras are located, it's actually seeing the neighbor's house as well. So the neighbor is getting a positive externality. They are getting some extra protection from my purchase of my car. So they are getting a benefit, although they were not a part of the transaction for the car. It will be a positive externality. A negative externality would be somebody is smoking a cigarette that they bought and they are blowing out the smoke and it's going into somebody else's face and causing them to cough and get sick. They didn't purchase the cigarettes. They don't even smoke. But because of somebody else's purchase, they are getting a negative outcome. That would be a negative externality. You understand the difference?
Yes, sir.
Can you see how positive and negative externalities can lead to market failure? If you have too much negative externalities or too little positive externalities,
Yes, sir.
right? Let's look at some of the consequences of these market failures. And then we look at, I didn't go through the government intervention set because I want to go through it after separate, right? So let's look at the consequences. Retrenchment. Because of market failure and a lower productivity and a lower efficiency, companies making less money, they have to reduce their workforce. Now it's have people losing jobs. Unemployment, because monopolies restricting the output, it's stopping industries from being able to, stopping other companies from being able to enter the market. To have less employment. Because of the inefficiencies in the markets, we now have a reduction in our GDP, or gross domestic product, something that we'll be looking at later. We have less merit goods. So now it's our people who are less educated. It's our people who getting sick a lot because we don't have as much healthcare. Now they can't earn as much money. Our poverty levels increase. The lack of public goods could lower the quality of life. We don't have proper roads, proper infrastructure, we don't have proper healthcare available, all those different things, proper security. So we have a decline in societal welfare. Some goods might now be overpriced and we can't afford it. Let's say we have too much demerit goods in society now, not enough merit goods. All of these things are negatives that could happen from market failure. Now remember, the government, their purpose is to look out for the welfare of society. And their purpose is to oversee the interactions with the households and the firms, and to try their best to ensure that things stay to what was being efficient. So they're the ones that will try to intervene to help prevent market failure. This is what the government would do to try to prevent market failure. You have a monopoly, but here what? You are going to put in laws to regulate your pricing. They're going to put in laws and regulations and policies that will help promote other companies being able to enter the market and compete. So there would no longer be a monopoly if they need it. Not enough merit goods being consumed. They might provide some for free. That's why we have public schools. Or they might provide subsidies to lower the cost for these merit goods, which will encourage more people to provide merit goods. We do have enough public goods, no problem. The government will provide it. That is why the government is the one who would pave the roads for us. we will have to study the free rider effect. That's why they will put the traffic lights, they will put the street lights. They are the ones who will pay the police service first. They will pay the defense force first. Too much negative externalities, no problem. Let's increase taxes on these negative externalities so people will buy less of them. Not enough positive externalities. Let's provide subsidies to reduce the cost for the positive externalities, or let's provide grants to encourage more people to open businesses selling positive externalities. This is the job of the government. They want to ensure that we are able to satisfy our wants efficiently by using our limited resources. Everybody following us?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now we have a little graph to look at. The market failure, right? So in monopolies, as I was saying here before, monopolies are able to make let's call it abnormal profits in the long run. Those abnormal profits that they make come at a cost to society. The monopoly would have a higher price than companies in perfect competition, for example. And that higher price would lead to what we call deadweight loss, right? Or welfare loss. Because now less people will be able to afford the good or service. So less people will be able to afford it, less people will have it, while the monopoly is enjoying extra money that could have been going somewhere else. I know this graph is not showing as clear as it could, but I will see if I can get a better graph for you all. I apologize for the technical difficulties today. But the graphs that normally come for paper 2. You might see one in a paper 1, which I will show you all at the end of the crash course on day 3. But these graphs normally, at least for market failure, they do normally come for paper 2. Right. The next graph, again, which doesn't really come for paper 2, but I'll still show you, is the externality graphs. Negative externality is where they put the societal cost over the private cost. So it hurts society more than the money that they spend, the money that they gain from selling the good. And then positive externality is the opposite. You get more social benefit. Again, this graph doesn't come for paper 2 really. I'm just showing you that. I've only ever seen literally one market failure graph ever come, and that is in paper 1, and it's the same graph over and over again. So when we do, again, when I do the paper 1, I'll show you all that. I'm just showing you all these graphs just to show you, right? Did really come for paper 2. What comes for paper 2 is everything that we did already up to here. The causes of what market failure is, the causes of market failure, and what the government does to intervene. Right? I've never seen this graph come ever. I just have it here so you'll have the information so you could go through it on your own if you'd like, right? Do determinants of income elasticity of demand and price elasticity of demand come? Yes, it does. We actually went through that in day one yesterday. It's a summary. Market failure occurs when markets do not allocate resources efficiently. The main causes: monopolies, public goods, merit goods, externalities. The consequences: unemployment, poverty, inefficiency, and welfare loss. And the solutions: government intervention. Right? And this is the end of microeconomics. If you can master everything in microeconomics, or they could get the first 3 questions correct. If you can get 60 out of 60 in the first 3 questions, but you get 50 out of 60, you know you're in a real good standing already. So we just have 4 topics to go through again, right? The 4 macroeconomic topics. We are going to do one of them today. So we're just taking a 10-minute break, this not too long. And we're going to go through one of these topics today. And tomorrow we'll go through the last 3 macroeconomic topics. And we will look at a paper 1. We'll look at a couple specific paper 2 questions. And we'll look at a paper 1. We'll go through a paper 1 to end of the crash course, all right? So we're just taking 10 minutes because that wasn't too long. And then we're going to do one topic. So it's 12:15 right now. At 12:25, you'll return. All right, and we're going to look at the financial sector.
Yes, sir.
Right. So we're going to look at the financial sector now. If they do POV, so a lot of these things you know already, not everything, but a lot of these things you will do in POV. Financial sector is the part of the economy where all the businesses or institutions. Somebody asking something. Say that again.
Your background kind of noisy, so I can't really hear.
Right, one second. I was not recording at the start when I went through explaining what the financial sector is the sector of the economy where all financial institutions operate. It's your organization that offers some sort of financial service. Then you are part of the financial sector. Then they started explaining what money was. Said before we understand what money is, we need to understand why we created money. And we started off explaining what barter is, the exchange of goods and services for other goods and services. So the use of money. We went through the limitations of barter, which was like the lack of double coincidence of one's transportation is used. It was difficult to measure the value of goods, difficult to store and wealth, and the lack of division, the visibility of some goods. So that's why they created money. Because money was able to eliminate these problems or at least reduce them because of the characteristics of money. Money is acceptable, so you no longer have the lack of double coincidence of things. You have money, you have something somebody wants. Money is durable, so you can use it to save it up. You don't have to worry about money perishing or anything like that. Money is portable, easy to fit in a pocket, so easy to travel with it. Because money is homogeneous or similar, we use money to measure the value of goods. Money is divisible, it can break up into different amounts. And money is of limited supply, which helps keep the value of money. I just have to run through it because I went through in a little detail just now before to record. My apologies. And we use money as a medium of exchange. We use money to save, to store wealth. Because a unit of account to see how much the funds are worth. And as a standard of deferred payment to see how much people are owing. And then we would support the money supply, which is the total stock of money in an economy at a particular time. And we said it was separated between narrow money and broad money. Narrow money is M0 to M1, and broad money is M2, M3, and M4. And I said before I explain what that is, I just want to show you something real quick. This is the economic syllabus, and I want you to see that on the economic syllabus, they only have M0, M1, and M2. So although M3 and M4 exist as well, I'm just going to be showing you all M0, M1, and M2. All right? Just showing you all for clarity.
Yes.
Because I know some teachers teach M3 and M4. But because only M0, M1, and M2 is on the syllabus, that's all I'm going to teach to ensure that you don't get too confused or anything. Right, so back to the PowerPoint. So narrow money is money that is easier to change to cash. The easier it is to change to physical cash, the narrower it is. The harder it is to change to physical cash, the easier, the broader it is. So M0 is the narrowest form of money. M0 relates to money that is actually already notes and coins, that is in circulation in the economy, as well as the money that's in the bank reserves. Those are the most liquid accounts. M1 refers to everything that's in M0, as well as demand deposit accounts. Any savings account or deposit account that you could want to access your money immediately would be considered as a demand deposit account. So I could go and put my money in the bank, and at any point in time I could get access to that money. That will be M1. M2 is everything that's in M0 and M1, but also savings and money market account. These accounts now will take a little while before you can take the money out of the account to be able to get it immediately. So it's not as liquid as M1 or M0. So M2 is actually considered broad. I'm not going to go to M3 and M4. I have the information here, so I'll send it to you, and I'm going to go through it because, again, it's not on the syllabus, as we saw ourselves, right? Why do people want
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Can you go back so I can take a picture of the M1 and M2, please?
Sure, no problem. So I will send this entire PowerPoint to you all, like what I did with the others. But no problem, feel free to take a picture.
I'm finished, sir.
There are three main reasons why people want money in the first place. Transactionary motives. They want money in order to buy things. They want to exchange it for other things, right? Because people want money for the things that they have, it's kind of necessary for us to have money so we could trade it for things that we want, right? I want to go to the gym. I can just go dress up, I get the money. I want to buy chicken and chips. I can just take it. I gotta get the money to get the chicken and chips. It's any food. I had to get the money to eat. The second motive is precautionary motives. So you want it just in case something happens as an outcome. So you want to have money put aside in case of an emergency. So you get in a car accident, you have money there to fix it. You guess you have money there to pay the doctor. And then the third one is speculative motive. Right? So yeah, special, okay. Maybe instead of investing money into this asset, it might be better holding the money. Because if I invest in this asset, I might lose out. All right. I'll keep the money. Or I feel if I invest, if I wait a little while to invest and to invest it now, that'll be better. So let me hold on to the money for now. That's a speculative motive. So you want to hold on to the money because you think it's less risky than lending it out or investing it into something else. So to have the transactionary motive, you need to buy stuff. Precautionary motive, you want to keep it in case of an emergency. Or speculative motive, you think it's less risky to have the money than to invest it into something else. Right. Now let's take a look at the financial sector itself. Right, the financial sector will have interaction with lenders and borrowers and institutions that provide other financial services, which you're going to take a look at now, right? And then there's also the informal sector, which does not operate under the official control of the government. Let's look at the functions of the financial sector. As we said, it attracts funds from businesses and private individuals. It affords businesses, it allows them to earn interest when they idle money. It gives the government a source of funds for investment. And it gives private sector a source of funds for both investment and spending. It allows the private sector the opportunity to own companies, and it can get compensated in the event that something happens, which is where the insurance comes in. These are some of the examples of financial institutions in the financial sector. We have commercial bank, like our Republic Bank, GMMP, Scotia Bank, First Bank, Royal Bank, and so forth, that we, as private individuals, get service. We have the stock exchange, where you can buy and sell shares. We have credit unions, which are owned by its members and provide services similar to commercial banks. We have the development bank, which allows you to get mortgages and stuff like that. We have insurance companies, which gives you financial protection against the risk of things that might happen, or the risk of some things that will happen, financial risk, such as debt. Mutual funds give you investment opportunities. We have building societies, investment trust companies, and then the informal sector. So tomorrow, at the start of tomorrow, we'll go through each of these individual institutions, and we'll finish off the financial sector, and then we'll do the last 3 parts of the syllabus, and we'll finish it off. Right, so we'll end here.